everybody! I'm here today to talk to you about 8 suggested car repairs with the recommended mileage. That's right. I'll be telling you the most common suggested car repairs and maintenance tasks, I should say, that you should be doing with your car. And I'll be telling you the recommended mileage. Now, you have to understand it all depends on your car and the parts on your car. So you should consult your owner's manual, but this is just a general guideline and a rule of thumb that will sort of average out the vast majority of average cars, okay? Let's get right into the video. I'll be saying it in miles. If you want to convert it to kilometers, then go right ahead. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but I'll be going over the mileage in miles, okay? Very simple and straightforward. Number 1 is your oil and your oil filter. This one is straightforward. Now, with conventional oil, you're looking at about 3,000 miles that you need to be changing it. With synthetic oil, you're looking at about 5,000 miles. It all depends on the type of oil and your engine, so this is something be sure to check the owner's manual on and look at the manufacturer's guidelines, but as a rule of thumb, conventional 3,000 miles, synthetic 5,000 miles. Synthetic obviously lasts longer, but it is more expensive, okay? Number 2, your air filter, okay? Very important. If it gets clogged, your engine will not perform properly and will potentially cause damage. About every 15,000 miles, you want to be replacing your air filter. And if you have one that you have to clean, if it's one that you can clean instead of replace, okay, if you have a permanent air filter, then you're looking at about 10,000 miles you want to clean it, because they get clogged a little bit easier depending on the type of air filter. And also when you're replacing it, you're starting fresh, whereas when you're cleaning it, you might not, it depends. If you clean it properly, you can last 15,000 miles. If you don't clean it properly, then 10,000 you should be doing it. Very simple and straightforward. Number 3 is your battery. Now, your battery, it all depends on timing and also mileage. So about every 50,000 miles or 4 to 5 years. Batteries will likely last longer, but you don't want to get stranded, right? So I recommend that you replace your battery earlier than it's going to drain out and die on you, because then it's going to leave you stranded. And sure, you might waste an extra $50 replacing it a little bit earlier than you would have when you work it out relative to the life of the battery, but it's worth it, because then that saves you from being stranded. And if you have to call a tow truck service or someone to boost you, that might cost you way more than $50 if you just do it one time, okay? Number 4, your brake pads. About every 40,000 miles for good brake pads. If you get bad brake pads, it's going to be much less. You get what you pay for when it comes to brake pads. More expensive brake pads are good, or I should say are better in terms of their braking power, but also in terms of their life length, longevity, okay? So, 40,000 miles if you have good ones. If you have bad ones, it could be, 15, 20,000 miles or even less. And you want to replace them when you start noticing brake fade, which is when you lose brake power over the years of using your brakes. And also when you start hearing screeching noises, and if you notice that they're like less than 1/4 of an inch, all those things, that's when you want to replace them for sure. And if you brake harder than average, if you're taking turns faster and you drive faster and more of a rush, then you're going to have to do it even earlier than 40,000 miles, okay? Because you're going to wear through them. Number 5, your hoses. Now, there are many hoses in your engine bay. Your hoses, they tend to crack and break and wear down over time. This is just a rubber compound that's used. And, if you live somewhere where you get cold weather like I do, I live in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada, so when we get winters, it's pretty cold. It's not like everyone makes it seem like snowstorms every day. We get a handful of snowstorms a year, if anything. But the weather is pretty cold for the most part, right? It's colder than average, I would say. So with that being said, the hoses wear down. So, you want to have them inspected at about 100,000 miles. And if some of them look like they're wearing out or they need to be replaced, get them replaced. It's as simple as that. Number 6, your spark plugs. Your spark plugs are necessary to produce a spark on the engine. When they start wearing down, you're going to get misfires, and if they wear down enough, your engine won't start, okay? Very simple. The good thing about spark plugs is that they're so easy to replace, and they're so inexpensive. So it's something that you can tackle as a do-it-yourself project with a little bit of research, a little bit of planning, and the proper tools and materials. But also, even if you have to pay a mechanic to do it, which is totally fine, because I don't replace my own spark plugs. I have a mechanic do that for me. It's just, you know, I can do it, but I just choose not to. But, you know, it's really cheap. They're really not expensive. And I would say 80,000 miles, get those replaced every 80,000 miles if you have good spark plugs. Okay, like if you have titanium ones, you're fine, 80,000 miles. If you have like old copper style ones, it's gonna be much, much, much less. So get the titanium ones. Simple as that, and they'll last a good amount of mileage, like 80,000, like I said. Number 7 is your timing belt. Your timing belt gets the engine going, and it makes sure that the pistons are firing at the right rate. So you want to make sure your timing belt works well. Now, I would say you should replace it every 75,000 miles before it goes bad. Some people will say to have it inspected at 75,000 miles, but listen, timing belts will break, they will wear and tear, and they are better in new condition. So even if your timing belt isn't worn out at 75,000 miles, I would say that you should definitely replace it because it's going to wear out. So you might as well replace it and have your engine performing in tip-top shape. Do it before it becomes a problem, because you're going to get misfires, rough idling. You're going to get the car not starting or just jumping all over the place when you try and start it. So just replace it early enough. It's as simple as that. 75,000 miles, get it replaced. Every 75,000 miles. Okay, last but not least is number 8, which is your power steering fluid. It's something that should be flushed, okay? You should flush it at 75,000 miles. You'll notice that your power steering will start to either make noises or just not work as well as it should. And that's a sign that you need to flush your power steering fluid. Now, that usually happens after 75,000 miles. So I recommend that you flush it at 75,000 miles. It's a relatively cheap thing to do. So that's why I recommend that you do it. There are certain things like replacing a blown head gasket that you wouldn't do before your head gasket blows, because your car might never blow the head gasket, and it's very expensive to replace. But certain things that are cheaper to replace, are cheaper to do, like a power steering fluid flush, I recommend that you do them before they become a problem, because you know that it likely needs to be done in the future. So you might as well do it because it's inexpensive and it'll save you from the trouble by just doing it now. That's it. Those are 8 suggested car repairs with the recommended with the recommended mileage. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.